Did you endure and survive the Last of Us season finale? If you did, you're in the right spot. Sit down, buckle up, get ready for tonight's show. If you have not, be forewarned, there will be spoilers ahead for the season finale and potentially spoilers for other things. So we'll get started by doing the honorary spoilers banner. Will be up and running for the entire show. If you don't want anything spoiled, turn back now, watch the episode, and come back and join this amazing crew as we talk about what is potentially one of the greatest finales to a video game adaptation ever. So without further ado, let's get into the crew as we welcome the man, the myth, the legend. You might think there's two of them, and no, that's not by any stretch of the name. It's Double O. What is up, brother?
Not much. What's up with you, Andy? How you feeling?
I'm emotionally in tatters and heartbroken. I couldn't even bring myself to rewatch the episode today.
Yeah, I wish I could have. It was a lot less. We watched a little bit of it again right away last night, but most of it, like, it'll happen later in the week. I'll be able to watch it again. But so much happened in this last episode. I was surprised they're able to fit so much in so little time.
Yes, sir. I can't wait to get in this tonight. I cannot wait to hear what you guys have to say and what our members of the live chat have to say tonight. I'm looking forward to. There's already people tailgating and chatting with comments for after the episode because it seems like people are taking sides. And then before we get into that, though, we got to also welcome the man, the myth, the legend as well, Jackson from Bored and Annoyed. Brother, how are you?
I am doing well, guys. How are you?
I'm excited to hear your spicy take on this.
Andy, I think, do we need to get you like some prescription antidepressant meds? You come in after every Last of Us episode pretty emotionally destroyed. Are you sure you're okay?
I'm gonna need a little bit of breather after this season finale, and I know you guys will definitely help drag me through the mud, so to speak, as we probably do a couple more episodes after this. But before we even get into discussion about that, we've got one special guest here tonight. I'm excited. You guys have seen him here in the past, and that is Mark, Legion of Comics. What is up, brother?
Doing good.
He's here to talk about Avatar.
Yeah, let's go. No. Yeah, I think I'm doing a lot better than y'all. After watching that, I think I'm doing better than y'all.
I can't wait to dig into this.
Do I see Mike in the chat, Andy? Is that what I just saw? Is that Mike in the chat?
I was going to say, before we dig into the particulars of the season finale, we got to welcome this fantastic community of live chat members in the comic community and the YouTube community, because you got GTK Comic, as always, is here and ready to go. Darth Lopez says, I stand with Joel.
Lopez! Yep.
Of course, Legion of Comics saying, what up, everybody? And then Burke Family 54, hashtag stay nasty, buddy. I didn't forget about that one. Hashtag stay nasty. Coco loves Chevy. We are Legion. Thank you. New to the chat, welcome. Consider subscribing and hanging out whenever you got time. And we all got to give a special heartwarming welcome to our brother from another mother, downright nerdy Mike. Don't be jealous, Jackson. Hopefully the downtime is treating you well and the family's doing well. I gotta text this guy, so I'm so late on texting him. We'll catch back up with you in a bit. And Shattered Glass Comics, we can't wait to catch the replay later. Yeah, catch the episode and come back because I want to hear what you have to say in your comment down below. I love Tyler has been in and has left comments in the videos after everything's said and done, so I'm really looking forward to getting caught up on those. Holy crap, is that Mike? Hashtag justice for Fedra. Interesting. And in Legion we trust. As more people begin to filter in, Ben Parker Comics.
Ben.
Mark, what is up? Yes. Man, I'm sure more people will continue to filter in. Comic journeys. Good evening, gentlemen, gentlewomen, gentle, gender neutrals. Hey, that's a very well. There you go. Bingo. Miss all you fellas. Hope to be back some way soon. I mean, he spent all that time. Mike, we got to call you out. The new studio and everything. We know you've been busy, but we look forward to seeing you back in that new studio sometime soon. I can't be the only one that's emotionally kind of not necessarily in tatters, but I got to say that even after Bella Ramsey's tweet, 2 weeks ago, saying that the season finale was going to divide fans, I was in tatters, worried with anxiety leading up to this, that they were going to stray away from what we know it as video game fans.
Yeah, so unlike you, Andy, I'm like filled with joy that it had the ending pretty much from the game. Without saying anything about it, but I was very thrilled with that. Double O, you were correct. So kudos to you. I didn't have anything to worry about as far as that was concerned. So
If there was one thing that you wanted since like I met you, since the beginning of this show that we've been doing, was you wanted this ending for this show, and they absolutely delivered for you.
they absolutely did. I mean, down to the like cut to black aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like literally.
Right, yeah, exactly. It was
So
perfect.
yeah.
I mean, it's seriously, what did you say in the chat last night? They quote unquote stuck the landing.
Yep.
Precisely.
Exactly.
Mark, now as somebody who has not played the video games and has just watched the series, what's your first impression?
It was all right for a finale. It was all right.
Interesting.
Out of all the episodes, this one had one of the least when it comes to emotional beats.
Oh,
it really did. It was an action style episode. That was cool. I'm trying not to like just push the story forward, but in a nutshell, I felt this was a completely different Joel than I've watched the rest of the series. He became insufferable at one point. I get it. You're chatty Cathy now, Joel. Just stop talking, keep walking. Like it was just I don't know. It just felt different than everything that came before. But it did feel like an action episode.
So that's interesting because I do kind of want to get into that a little bit. So first of all, like I respectfully disagree. I thought that the
how dare you
time heals all wounds, and then his response of like time wasn't what healed it was probably the best single like.
Well, I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with that.
So like there's that, but I did get to your point, even though it was pretty much played out as the game, I did get a sense that it wasn't as amazing to watch on a show. And I don't know if that's because like this was my second time experiencing it, but like the game definitely had more of a like wow factor for me when I played it. The ending did. And I don't know, like there's aspects of this ending, which we'll get into when we go into details, that like they did do it beat for beat, and I love the final scene. But there is a difference in Joel in particular that we can get into.
Yeah, keep in mind, this is me discovering Joel.
Right.
So the last time I saw Joel, he was about to die, being carried through the woods by a little girl. You know what I mean? Like where we left him in the last scene. He's been quiet, reserved, super introverted, and then the very next time I see him, he won't shut the hell up. That's how I'm discovering for the first time. That's what I'm saying. It just seemed different. I had to get my bearings in this episode before I could even dive into the episode.
You know, it's almost like in relationships though. It's like where if you're in like an extended relationship, you find that like when one person's down, the other person's up, and when one person's having problems, the other person is trying to pick them up. And I almost felt like in this episode, after what Ellie went through last week, that dynamic had kind of flipped.
And also how much time has gone by. They don't normally ever like specifically tell you, but like it's not like super cold where they're at. You know, we're in a different place. They've covered a lot of ground, so I did take that into account.
Mark's got a solid point here. Speaking as a fan that's watched just the show, it would have been nice if they would have placed a little 2, 3, 4, 6 month. Obviously, they go from winter in that area of Wyoming, Utah, the lake resort area, they didn't travel very far to get to Salt Lake.
Yeah, Colorado
Not
and
even-
Utah.
Yeah, like they didn't travel super far to get there, so more time has passed than distance has passed, and now we're in essentially mid-spring, maybe even a little early spring. It seems more like it's kind of everything's brightened up and greened up, so some time has passed. But then I get it where he feels like Joel's kind of done a 180 flip, because you get a little bit more interaction between Joel and Ellie in the game, is my feeling, during some of the gameplay, and not necessarily in the cutscenes where you get little tips and bits and pieces here, where really in the show, as condensed as it was, you kind of only get that during what was the bus station scene in the game, and now is like the construction scene into the draft scene, kind of. Whereas it felt like there was quite a bit more of that. And yeah, I mean, Bella Ramsey, I think, does a fantastic job transitioning from the last episode to this episode, but I can definitely see where Mark's point lands there.
So I think part of that is that in the show that it's been significantly condensed, and I feel like if we had a couple more episodes or a little more time with them kind of developing that turn, but since the last episode we saw Joel kind of wake up. I mean, he's done some brutal things before, but what he did to those two guys, he popped a kneecap and he like just killed the other guy like in cold blood like that. He started to like, this was when you knew that he had he had started having feelings for Ellie before, but now he like definitely connected with her much more as his daughter than he had. And then at the end of the last episode, he called her baby girl, which he hadn't said in 20 plus years. So that was like kind of the switch for Joel that went to, he wanted, he was her dad after that point.
That what you have up on the screen now, I think, is the point.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, she's like, she's shut down. He's worried. He's trying to coax. I mean, shit, this happens with my wife. Like, I almost like try and coax her into feeling better, even though I know that I don't have the power to do that, like, consciously. And I feel like that's what he's trying to do at the beginning of this episode. And then finally there's like the giraffe thing that kind of like, oh, here's this beautiful thing out in the world, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, it's almost like a refresh point.
Yeah, she snaps her out of it a little bit.
Right.
Yeah, she's clearly zoned out with the 1,000-yard stare, and he's coming over the top, which is not something Mark is accustomed to as just a viewer or a fan of the show, because he didn't get a lot of it like what we did in the game. And even Joe doesn't go that over the top in the game a whole lot. It's just a few more bits and pieces. Some of the puzzles, I think what we got in the game as players was during the puzzles that weren't in the cutscenes, we get a little more commentary, or a little more not action, but interaction with Ellie that feels a little more enduring, or a little bit more bonding through some of those puzzle pieces.
Though, like, people are saying this is condensed, but like, if I picked up this game right now and I didn't open every drawer and I just played through it at top speed, I would finish the game in 3 hours less than this show ran.
Yeah.
I mean,
there's speedrunners that'll do it really fast.
I don't even think you have to speed run it. Like, if you don't search every house that you walk into, I mean, I searched pretty meticulously when I played, and it probably took me 13 hours to finish. So I don't know. I feel like they got everything in there that needed to be in there.
Well, but that's true for the game, but like in the show, they added like the DLC,
That's
the whole
true.
Bill and Frank episode, like
Yeah.
they changed so much, so you did miss some of that, however many hours it would be,
That's a good point.
They gave us a lot more of other stories, which was, I mean, they did a fantastic job of giving those to us, but that was at a cost.
Speaking of, we should probably just jump right into the beginning of this episode. I know we got derailed talking about it.
Yeah.
That was a professional level segue.
Yes. The beginning of this episode was not in the game. And it opens with with Ashley Johnson, who I can't remember the mother's name, but she's Ellie's
Anna.
mom, pregnant, running into this like emptied out house, and she runs in and she's clearly like in labor. While she's in labor, a infected is coming to attack her, and they show her giving birth as the infected bites her before she can kill it, and then she cuts the umbilical cord of the baby. So I believe the implication is that Ellie is immune because her mother was bit while giving birth.
She was microdosed. She was microdosed.
Right. Yes,
microdosed.
microdosed.
Serious.
Yeah. No, she was microdosed. So that is something new. Unless I'm missing something from either game, I don't remember that lore at all. That's
It
correct.
made good context too to the ending, though.
It's implied. It's for sure implied, but they leave a lot of things unspoken. I mean, there's a lot of things that happen to a mother's body that protects a baby that I mean, kidneys and livers and everything works for a reason. It's not just like an injection into her blood would hit the baby's bloodstream in a split second, you know.
You mean it's implied in this? It's not in the game, right?
No, correct.
It's implied with biology.
Implied in the show, but not in the game. Correct.
Yeah.
This is the first time we see it.
So I'm gonna step out into hopefully not too heavy of waters here, but I think that this was kind of stupid. I am not a fan of this. I think it's way more interesting if you don't know anything. Like I don't know what this adds from a storytelling perspective, except for like details that don't matter. Like now this is a thing, and it's like, okay, you know, now you start thinking like, okay, well, now this has never happened before. Nobody thought of this. Like the what's her name? The girl, her friend who finds her and kills her. Marlene didn't think of this. Like this just seems like Marlene would be like, okay, well, here's a good assumption as to what happened. I know she told me that she had already cut the umbilical cord, but like somebody would have thought of this.
Yeah, she's had 2 decades to think about this kid. Yo, this I didn't know that this wasn't in the game. So this opening scene took me back to episode 1. I'm like, Marlene's known this kid since birth, and look how she was treating her in episode 1.
Yeah, and you know that's interesting too, because in the game they do, like, it is implied that she is basically not raised Ellie, maybe, but she's known Ellie her whole life. Marlene has. So they kind of kept that hidden in the show. I believe we talked about that, right? We talked about that in a previous episode, that like in this version, Marlene doesn't know Ellie. She just found her after the mall thing.
Exactly.
But now we know Marlene knew Ellie basically her whole life, right? Which is the same as it was in the game. We just didn't know about her mother being bitten while giving birth to the kid.
Right.
And that stretches into like midi-chlorians prequel shit, where it's like this doesn't add anything helpful for this story from a like spiritual perspective. Like she's more interesting as just this one anomaly. Nobody knows why. Like to me, that's way more interesting.
And it wasn't just how Marlene treated Ellie, but how Ellie was reacting, responding, and treating Marlene. Like there was no assumption that she knew her at all in that first episode. And then in this episode, she's like asking where she is by the end of it, kind of thing. And I'm like, there was a disconnect there.
I think like when Ellie was being held, she didn't know Marlene. Like Marlene kept an eye on her from afar, but I don't think Ellie knew Marlene.
Correct. Yeah.
So Marlene didn't know that Ellie was immune until she found her at the mall. So she was 14 years old before there was any even concept of this girl being immune, because she was testing her. She was trying to figure it out. So if because that's the first thing I thought. I'm like, if that's the easy solution, why don't they bite more pregnant women while they're giving birth so they can find a solution? But that's not.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter when she found out. I mean, the fact is that immediately upon realizing Ellie was immune, this would go into her head, right?
But it's only been a year.
Yeah, but like I feel like the second you found out she was immune, you would be like, boom.
So what? Go get some infected and bite pregnant women?
No, but like Ellie's not the last hope now. Like this is something that theoretically, if they're so morally bankrupt that they're willing to kill an innocent person without their consent, then they could just do this again. That's my point.
That's true.
I'm gonna choose to kind of just forget a little bit because I don't think this is gonna come back up in the future, to be honest with you. But what this opening does do is it adds a tremendous amount of weight to Marlene's responsibility that we see in the first few episodes to Ellie, and why she's so adamant about protecting Ellie and keeping her chained up and taking care of her. Well, it's because her and Anna had been lifelong friends into this before the apocalypse and into the apocalypse, it sounds like. Because they mentioned that like, how long have I known you? For life was the response, if I remember correctly. So that wasn't in the comics, it wasn't in the game, so it adds a lot more weight, and I'm glad that they did this. I really am. I'm with Jackson a little bit, where it kind of demystifies and kind of pulls away from how important Ellie can be, and I kind of dislike that. So as a fan, I'm going to choose to kind of ignore it, because I'm going to like explain it away in my head medically that just can't really happen that quickly.
It's just a coincidence.
It's just a coinky dink.
I like everything else about it. Like the scene itself was cool. It was cool to see Ashley Johnson like play Ellie's mom. That's kind of a neat, like, metaphorical passing of the torch type thing going on. But
so who is she?
So she played the voice of Ellie in the game.
Got you. There's been a lot of that in this series. That's really cool. They've done that. Yeah, really cool.
It happens several times, and they actually, Marlene was played by the same actress.
Yeah,
so like, it was kind of cool
Marlene.
to have Ellie and Marlene talking to each other.
It's even cooler to watch what Marlene did to her.
Well, what?
Said it was even cooler to watch what Marlene did to her.
Oh yeah, right. That was intense. Like, she had to. She begged her. She begged her to shoot me or to kill me.
She has that like 1 second where she's like, I can't kill you, and then she leaves the room, and it's like, fuck it, I'm going back in there. I'm going to shoot her in the face.
And she thinks about it. Like, either I kill her now or I'm going to have to kill her later.
Right.
So
you know what else is intense?
Giraffe.
Not hitting that like button. Make sure you guys hit the like button while we go down this avenue. It's a good little Sagoo right there. But how much more can you pick away at this? I'm sure you could create an entire episode about this. I do like where it went. I like the horror. Jackson, can you speak a little bit about the traditional horror tropes here as we see her pregnant running through the forest? I mean, that was...
It was very A Quiet Place. Remember the scene in A Quiet Place where Emily Blunt has to give birth to the kid with the monster that's in the house, and she like can't make a sound? That's what it reminded me of. Not quite as intense as that, because that was like off the charts ridiculous, but yeah, no, it was good. I mean, the horror tropes in this, I thought they've done really well.
I got a quick question. How do the monsters know, like, get indoors and stuff? You know how she was in numerous levels of doors and floors and stuff like that. We've seen the other clickers that just track by sound, and that was something I was waiting for when this one opened the door. It wasn't at that point, but is that something in the game as well? Like, they just have the ability to navigate really easily?
So in the captions, they called this a clicker, but this wasn't a clicker. This was what they runner, and they still have some of their cognitive abilities before they like have their completely have the fungus grow out of their head, like to the clickers that you saw. So they can still see, and they run, obviously, as you saw, really fast. So they do have their ability still to be able to.
So they recognize what a door is, because this one had to get through numerous to get to her in the opening.
Yeah, this one went through a window to get on the first level of the house because she locked the front door.
Oh, yeah, you can hear the window. Yeah.
It'll break down doors, I'm assuming. But yeah, that's a good point. Like, because it's not like a clicker where like the slightest noise will draw them to you, but it is kind of reusing that concept, even though it's not a clicker. Right. Because like the whole point is like she can't stay quiet because she's giving birth, right?
One thing I thought that they missed a real opportunity when we had some of those really great like wide shots with her running through the field and seeing that like that wide openness from the woods and the house so far away, and just that sense of like vulnerability being out there. And when they give
Yeah.
us that last shot like of the house's vantage point, her coming up on it, and you can see the wood line. I was watching it like a hawk. I'm like, I want to see something moving in that wood line on its way, kind of thing.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
does make her
that.
feel very small and like she's got an insurmountable several football fields to run to get to some safe harbor.
Yeah,
And
helpless.
we don't know how many are chasing her at this point.
Yeah. I don't know why. I mean, my first thought is why is a pregnant woman running alone through the woods? But that's, I mean, it kind of has to happen to fit the story.
Exercise.
Right. Going for a
Well,
walk.
I know they did talk about Marlene and the other two that are with her when they got there later after the sun had set. They talked about being stuck trying to escape the QZ. So my guess is that Anna here, or for some reason her name escapes me at the moment, but she escaped either the QZ or was trying to meet up with them outside of the QZ to get help to deliver the baby, because obviously the doctors aren't a dime a dozen at this point, and she's been pregnant for some time and trying to make plans, and she's known Marlene her whole life, now the leader of the Fireflies, or has been the leader of Fireflies, and instead of going to see a doctor potentially in a QZ or going to a QZ to ask for help, she went to Marlene first. And Marlene, of course, being a leader of the Fireflies and a smuggler, they can't just walk in and out whenever it's convenient for them.
I have it in my head. Like, I just assume like we're what at this point, like 13, 15 years into the infection or something, or at least a good handful of years into the infection. So a couple at least. So wouldn't they be like midwifing it?
Oh, yeah.
Natural birth would be
Yeah.
like just normal.
Yeah, it's 20 plus years, I think.
So the opening scene would have been about 6 years after the outbreak.
Oh,
I
God.
think.
Oh, yeah. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Because Ellie's lifespan as
Right,
well.
right.
Yeah.
All right.
that makes
Well,
sense.
we moving on from the opening scene then?
We can. I agree with you guys. That was a pretty brutal way, but then for Marlene to take the I can't do it to walk out to turning right around in like 30 seconds, like that's a
Yeah.
It's got one more thing. I knew Marlene and her people were POSs when she told that jabroni to cover the baby's ears, and he knew she was about to fire a gun in that house, and he still did it.
He didn't do it. Right. Yeah.
He didn't do it. Like, these are heartless bastards.
I'm just happy you worked the word jabroni into the conversation.
It won't be the
I love
last
it.
time. Not
Yes.
this episode.
I have one quick point. There was a song that Anna was singing when Marlene walked up, and just another quick throwback to Ashley Johnson, because that's it was an Aha song. It wasn't Take On Me, but it was another song that Aha did.
Which one was it?
It's called
They only did Take On Me.
yeah, I know. I can't. I put it in my story today, but I can't think of the name of the song. I'll get it for you.
Well, like while you do that really quick, it's important to point out that this is essentially the embodiment of passing the torch of from Ashley Johnson to Bella Ramsey, from Ellie to Ellie. This was wholly needed for this series to continue going forward for fans of the games. Now, I would imagine Ashley Johnson will still be voice acting as Ellie if there is potentially another video game in the future, or if we see a multiplayer game soon and they use Ellie's voice. I'm sure Ashley Johnson will still do it. But now, effectively, when anybody watches the show or the video games going forward, it's Bella Ramsey is going to be everybody's Ellie, and Ashley Johnson's passing that torch on.
She'll never be my Ellie. Let's get real. Come on.
She's the only Ellie I know.
Yeah. It was very distracting, by the way, listening to Ashley Johnson like whimper and scream, because I'm sitting, oh, it's Ellie. Like, it's like, wow, Ellie's in the show. Like, it literally like fucked with me a little bit, because I'm like, oh my God, that sounds exactly like Ellie. Oh, it is Ellie.
Yeah. It's her natural voice that she uses as Ellie, so it's super.
But no, I didn't mean to take anything away from Bella Ramsey. She's good. I have no problem with her.
But yeah,
It's called
where
"The Sun Also Shines on TV." Is the name of the song.
do-
you go.
Just FYI. Yeah,
it's another 80s tune, isn't it?
definitely. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
80s tunes mean what?
80s. Mean
Trouble.
danger. Yep.
Trouble.
I like how they sneak that stuff in there.
Yep. So good.
I mean, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, no. I was trying to think of what happens after the credits. Are we just walking towards Salt Lake City? Is that the next segment of the show?
They break up the very beginning with Anna Williams and the Fireflies. They run the credits in the middle of that, and then they come back, and then it's dark, and the Fireflies are at the farmhouse, and then after that,
That's right.
We cut scene to the road into Salt Lake City.
Yep. Ellie's
And-
sitting on the back of the truck, and she's just in her own thoughts. And then Joel walks up with a can of beefaroni.
Chef Boyardee, and remember, he's
yeah.
like trying to spark her memory
Right.
of better times past. I think this is incredibly important because they're also poking at the painstakingly heartbreaking story that is in the RV that you get in the video game that we don't tiptoe into here in the show. But he's got that Boggle game and the Chef Boyardee, like he got supplies out of the RV.
Right.
And this was where, like Mark, if you want to add to this is where Joel really starts to kind of go over the top.
Yeah, it was just consistent through it. I don't know where it came from. It was just weird to me. I don't really know what to add beyond what I said about it. He just seemed excessive in this compared to what I'd seen before. Because like I said, this is the first time I've seen him since he was dying.
Right. And this is really the first time, like you guys mentioned after the last episode where he called her baby girl, he's really sold. He's
got a new lease on life.
No, but has there all right, like take what you know outside of the show and you got to put on a shelf. Where do I know that from? Where do I know that's the first time that he said that? Where did they tell me the importance of that as just somebody who watches this show? You know what I mean?
I mean, you've been following the characters. You know that he never he's never openly treated her like his daughter.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I mean,
and seeing her,
everyone keeps saying the baby girl thing.
So he called Sarah baby girl in the first episode before all hell broke loose. The show thematically is very clearly about her kind of breaking down his walls that he has built up to protect himself from the hurt.
Yeah, but even when you go back to episode 1, you don't even see him acting like this with his own daughter hardly. On his birthday, for that matter.
Well, his own daughter,
with his own daughter.
I mean, his own daughter, like, there wasn't an attempted rape on her, and she wasn't almost eaten by cannibals. Like, we didn't ever get to see Joel with her after the shit hit the fan.
Super true. But this is a lot of stuff that you're having to, as a viewer who's watching this for the first time, you have to, in real time watching it, reclock all that in your head. Let me remind myself of all this right here, right now. And again, it gets to a point where I'm like, okay, I got it. Now I've sat here and I've rationalized his behavior now. It was not a natural progression feel. And all of it is a simple thing. X months later. They've done it in the show before already.
I mean, even if
there was no time clocking here.
I don't know. I mean, even if it was the next day, I get it. Like, she's completely destroyed by this thing that just happened. He has been emotionally affected by this thing that just happened, and seeing her in the shape that she's in, she saved his life, risked her own life to do so. And now after that last catalyst event, they are complete. There's no denying it now. Like, they are a father-daughter. And he's trying to comfort her and make her feel better, and she's not having any of it. I thought it was clear. I don't think that they misstepped there. I really don't. But
I think it also, like, it's forcing you to go back and think about all the stuff that happened. I mean, they gave us more of a recap at the beginning of this episode than they had before.
Yeah.
They gave you a nice little, review of a bunch of little things, but they kind of want you to, like, think about and fully digest all of the little things that have happened until now.
Yeah, it was for sure almost a full season recap. Well,
And
I kind
It
of wish I
was,
would have re-binged this series this week. Kind of wish I would have done that. Not because it would have really done anything else, but I don't know. I think it would have just been a little smoother because there's been time jumps through it. And even a lot of comics we read are like that between issues, even. But I don't know. I just wasn't expecting it.
I would like to acknowledge though his like the point you're making where it's like it is hard to remove yourself from what you know because of the video game. So it's totally possible that's clouding my judgment. But I don't know. I'd be interested if anybody else is in the chat who didn't play the game. I'd be interested in their thoughts on it.
yeah, I'd really be interested to hear them too, because you make that comment. My judgment is potentially clouded as well with as many times as I played the game. And we did make that comment some time ago, or maybe a couple of different times, wondering what it would be like watching from start to finish without a week in between each episode, and if that would deliver the story a little bit more what we would be accustomed to, considering like when you're playing the game, you don't put down the controller every hour and wait another week. You put down the controller when you feel you've had enough, or when you're done emotionally.
or when you're about to fall asleep.
Yeah.
Correct. Yes, that was typically the case. Yeah.
Yeah, Mark, I've tried to during the course of watching the show, I've tried really hard, and it's impossible to do it perfectly, but I've definitely tried to like look at it from the perspective of somebody who's never played the game. And I've like, well, they did that, but you have to remember people are haven't played the game or watching this. You have to remember it's for a general audience. And so I've definitely tried to think of it that way. But what you're saying didn't even think to me, but that has to be because I'm so familiar with.
Yeah, I get it
Character,
all
you
the
know?
time from
Yeah.
people when I'm
Right.
talking about comic book movie content, because I can watch the worst comic book adaptation of something ever, but take this vast knowledge that I have and it just envelops all the holes and
Right.
plot holes and everything. And I'm
Right.
like, dude, that was so
Well,
fun.
that's because of that. Oh, that's because it's that. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I have all the context I need to enjoy a Snyder movie.
Oh,
I was just going to say, so Man of Steel, then you're describing.
I was going to say Batman v Superman
There you go.
specifically because that one was edited to ruin.
wow. Wow.
I think for sure there's definitely different viewpoints on where you stand, because even they talk about how in the podcast they say, well, based on everything that's happened now, do you agree with how it ended? And people that are parents like agree 100%, and other people that aren't parents were like a split 50-50 kind of decision. And I'll leave that little nugget for kind of towards the end of the show so we can revisit it.
Damn
I
it!
was
Andy.
ready to fire, dude.
Oh man,
That what I'm just trying to do is add credit to what Mark is bringing up, and add credit to what Jackson is bringing up, is that we're all from different places and different perspectives, and we're all getting different values out of this at different times. And that's why I appreciate getting together and kind of talking about it, because until Mark brought that up and until Jackson said, yeah, my judgment could be clouded because of my time with the video game, I think I'm probably with Jackson a little bit on my judgment might be a little bit clouded. And I would really like to hear back from people like you, Mark, and Mike, and other people that are live in the chat right now of what their experience is after they play the game, now that they've watched the show. So they would be on like the opposite side of the spectrum as what Double O and Jackson and I are.
Well, real quick, Mike's in the chat. Hopefully he's still listening. You said that it worked better for you because you didn't play the game. Out of curiosity, did you feel the same way about it, where it was like it kind of felt too rushed as far as his all of a sudden connection with Ellie and the way that he acts in the episode, or did it work for you specifically?
I don't know if rush is the word either, because that's been the format of the show. You get time jumps. I just felt it was an abrupt boom, there it is. That's how it is now. There's no lead in to it. And a lead in can be something as simple as just words on the screen.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think it was abrupt. It's definitely a natural progression. There's no here it comes.
I'm with Mark, because PTSD, depression, all of these things aren't just an overnight. They take time and they pick away at you, and they eat away at you
in the head.
And changes you to your core. And like, if it would have been nice to have 2 months, 3 months, 4 months on there, it really would have added to how long has Ellie been in this glass bottle that Joel's trying to break into, kind of thing. But we get one of our to segue out of the way away from that to get into kind of the next point before we get into what was the bus station kind of turns into a construction building here for the show. We get one of those little views of a puzzle, and this was my heart kind of jumped for joy that we got the old hoist her on up and grab the ladder and throw it down, because that was really a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was the first time in the whole show that they've done. I mean, like, he hoisted Tess up, I think, at one point.
At a window. Yeah.
And there was a window. Yeah, there was a window as well.
And they had to
with
get
the
the
ladder
go around and open the door from the inside.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, he did that. Yeah. And he
that's like every 5 seconds in the video game you're doing that.
constant. That and drawers.
Congratulations.
Everyone keeps going back to drawers with this game. Drawers.
Well, you're always searching for supplies.
Mhm.
So like if you bust through a house, you're always checking all the drawers.
You're going to spend 15 minutes.
75% of them are empty. So you just get fucking annoyed because it's like, well, why can I even open that drawer if there's nothing in it? So
It's true.
yeah.
But this is totally like a big part of the game, the hoisting up and giving me the ladder. And yes, it is. It's totally like a big Easter egg to the game. But but she throws the ladder down. Like, she doesn't even hand him the ladder. She just tosses it and runs.
Why?
And she's just like, she's excited, and us as a viewer, and you're like, what the heck is going on? You're afraid. What is she getting herself into? What is she doing? And she runs and she sees one of the things that she's like they've been foreshadowing in multiple points during the show for her to get to, and she gets to see the giraffes. And the giraffes are alive, and they are just hanging out in this baseball field, and they're just living life.
It was great.
And I thought it was fantastic.
So did they not set off the cordyceps? Like, we've only seen one time in this whole series with the whole interconnectivity of fungi, and those things are trampling all around the ground. Wouldn't there be like every freaking fungi for like the next state over? And be like, oh, dude, there's a buffet that way. Let's go.
I think that aren't they only attaching themselves to humans?
No, but what Mark is saying, that whether it's human or
They
not,
wouldn't
the
know,
activity, the seismic activity, getting
got it.
against your crush.
He
He makes a point there. The only tidbit or side thought to that would be like, because this is a main Firefly base in Salt Lake City, maybe they've done something to clear that out or barricade it, because it's supposed to be one of the main Firefly bases near the West Coast. And I'm not making excuses. I'm just like, that's kind of where my brain went, being that they were protecting an actual doctor, which is like one of the most precious things at this point in the apocalypse.
Tell that to the people in Kansas City.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
I just thought about doctors.
But like, I'll bring this screen up, and you cannot have this story continue or unfold without this scene, regardless of how they pace things. Or how they timed some things, and anything that I'm nitpicking. You cannot not do this for Joel and Ellie. And what I thought was incredible was, as we were watching this, I'm looking at my wife and I'm like, God, that's some really good CGI. Holy shit, they did a really good. Come to find out, I did a little bit of research this morning. They used real giraffes and hand fed them and everything. Yes.
I told my wife, I'm like, there's no way that could be a real giraffe. That has to be CGI.
I think the entire background is fake.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
They used some sort of blue screen. Like, one of the pictures I saw online was everything around them was blue, and they were like up on like a loft area to obviously get up high enough to the giraffe, and they were hand feeding the giraffe live.
That's amazing.
That was neat. And correct me if I'm wrong, that led into finally them having the conversation of, Ellie, we don't need to do this. We can just turn around and go back to Jackson and we'll be just fine.
Right.
Which is what you have as your background here for the episode tonight, I believe.
Yeah.
That conversation.
Can't deny that view.
So this was clearly like a moment of like, okay, like this is very much like a mental reset for the two characters right here. Joel gets to see his new daughter basically in a better place, and she kind of understands like, oh, this is a moment where she can't help but be happy and get snapped out of it.
Right.
So I thought that this was great.
Yeah, something bright and beautiful in this world of terrible, terrible things.
And his immediate thought is, all right, let's just go back to Jackson and go live our lives, and let's not deal with this anymore.
Yeah, he's
That's-
sold.
He's done. He doesn't want to do it. He doesn't want to go to the Fireflies. He doesn't want to put her in any more danger. He doesn't want to do that. He just wants to go back to where it's safe, where he knows his brother is there, and they have family. They can just go and be safe.
So I assume
And-
that's because like he knows how the Firefly roll because he's been in and out of dealings with them through this whole post-apocalyptic crap, and he's found like I guess a semblance of happiness with her is what I took from that. Is that
He's
about right?
really, yeah, he's really accepting her in Sarah's place.
Yeah.
He's opened himself up. He's ready for that and to care for her and guide her and become, her pseudo dad.
Yeah, his whole purpose, and like Tommy even mentioned that, just because your world ended doesn't mean everyone else did. So he found his purpose in being a parent. But that also, again, this was I saw Firefly red flags all through this episode, from the jabroni not covering the baby's ears, you're welcome, Jackson, to this moment where they'd rather just let's not even worry about with a cure. Let's not even worry about saving humanity, and not even humanity. Let's not even worry about protecting ourselves with a cure. Like it's not even just about saving the world. They're part of the world. If there is a cure, if she is the solution, that applies to them as well. But he's not even worried about that. So I'm like, how bad are these Firefly people that he doesn't even want to get near them at this point?
Yeah, and he makes the comment too, like every single step along the way, there's been something between us and the goal, right? So
Mhm.
like we can just turn back now and avoid that, hopefully. But yeah, that's a good point too. Is like they're not trustworthy. I mean, they're very much presented as terrorists from a certain point of view.
From
Yeah, I think
That's
every organization that's been represented
Right.
in the show have all been, from
Yes.
Fedra to KC, resistance people to these people.
to the hunters,
Anytime
to everyone. Yeah.
every time you see a clique of people, there's
They're
elements
assholes. Yeah.
of terrible people, minus where Tommy was from. And even then,
It
Yeah, you wouldn't put
obviously,
past them. Right.
even then.
it
If they
obviously
didn't know, sorry, Andy, go ahead.
Well, I mean, I'm making a joke because it obviously weighs so heavily on Joel that he decides to break his own thumb as anybody stares and nitpicks at this. Look at, I can't zoom in on this, but
He's got a double jointed thumb. That's awesome.
he's got a double jointed thumb, and that thing is just cracked all the way down there under the pressure. And I thought I only discovered this through like a spoilers or an Easter eggs episode of on somebody's channel on YouTube. And I looked at that thing and I cannot unsee it now.
That's what he
Wow.
picks locks with.
All right, this show sucks. That was super stupid looking. I'm done.
Yeah,
Have a good night.
I can't believe they did that. I liked this show until now.
What?
It's ruined.
So we have to deal with infected and freaks now. I'm out.
Double thumbs or double
Double
jointed,
jointed.
but
But yeah, so this leads into they continue their journey. And then I believe is my favorite conversation in the episode when they're talking about Joel finally tells her how he actually got the ear injury. And it was from attempted suicide, failed suicide attempt. And she is kind of missing the point of what he's saying when he's explaining that, like, hey, I'm glad that this failed, and she's like, oh yeah, time heals all wounds. And he replies to her, time didn't heal it.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh
good.
my God. That was like the essence of the whole thing. That's the whole story, right?
Yep.
That was amazing.
yeah, I mean, this is essentially the two of them telling each other that they love each other, and like this is like two
Stubborn.
two stubborn old grumpy men that will never say I love you or that they cared for anybody or anything. They never showed any emotion. Ellie, obviously, because she grew up without a mother and was never really probably given emotion. She grew up in a Fedra police state in a boarding school where she had to fight and she had to scrap her way to the top to where she is, and Joel being the older middle-aged man that was separated or did not have a wife and was trying to raise a daughter on his own. That's kind of the old trope, right? The dad that never is emotionally attached to his children, that never says anything, you know?
So real quick, Andy, can you throw Mike's comment about being initially afraid that, okay, so this is something I want people to understand. Like, I am not shitting you when I say that, like, as good as this show was, the game is so far beyond 99.9% of storytelling in any video game ever that, like, the video game will make you cry. If the show makes you cry, the video game will too. So, like, you know, and then he makes a comment, the character development he believes due to the actors and writers. Like, no. Like, this story, like, I shit you not, the game was just as powerful. It's hard to believe. It's hard to believe, but it was so, like, I told my brother and other people, like I'm playing a video game, like, tearing up and almost crying. Like, if the show was cutscenes from the game, it would be amazing. Like, you know what I mean?
It'll be just as good as it was now. Like,
yes,
at least just as good as it was.
Yes, it's so good. So,
and
yeah,
I love
Mike,
the fact listening to you say those things, and I'm not the one that has to say it. It's great.
Yeah, it's so good. Like, it's incredible. I was blown away. Like, I don't think the gameplay, I'm gonna get crucified for this. I don't think the gameplay is like the best ever in a game.
Shame.
But the storytelling is like next level. So they had a really good foundation to build this show off of, where, like, other games wouldn't work as, like, straight adaptations because there's nothing there, right? But this one did. So
yeah, if Mike ever gets a PS5, I'm going to buy this game for him to play. That's how much we believe in this story and how good the story is in the game. It is one of the top selling PlayStation games of all time, and it's in the top 5 PS4 PlayStation games sold of all time. The remake or the remaster.
You can
from
get a PS3, you can get a PS4, you can get a PS5, and relatively soon you'll be able to play it on PC.
Yep.
Later this month it'll be a PC release.
And when it hits PC and PC gamers and it starts hitting Twitch and more of the gamer community that doesn't do console games gets into it, it's going to get more traction from the storytelling side of things, in my opinion. But what's really important to know is this is the scene, like Joel talks about how he ended up in a camp like this. It's not a Fedra camp. It's an army medical camp just days after the initial outbreak, after he attempted suicide. Now, I don't recall that being something that was in the game. I don't think that was mentioned. This was the point where Ellie breaks out the picture of Joel and Sarah, and this time he accepts it from her, but that picture wasn't part of the show. So I think they did a little bit of trade-off here, because I don't recall him talking about attempting suicide in the game. You guys correct me if I'm wrong there. So this adds I don't remember it either. This adds another dimension to Joel that I think adds a lot of depth, that after he lost Sarah and ended up in that camp because he attempted suicide, this kind of brings him back. But instead of going to a dark place, instead of going deep inside himself, he comes out a bit more. And we, for the first time that I can think of, get to see both Joel and Ellie smiling together, and out comes the pun book.
Yeah.
He asked for it.
He does.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then a frag or a whatever shock grenade flashbang hits him in the face.
Yeah, quite shocking. I mean, what?
Yeah.
This is just a super awesome picture. I kind of want to capture this and put it on like a fat head sticker on the wall, or there's somebody out there is going to do an art print on canvas or something and put it out. And I definitely want to get something like this framed. I think that'd be fantastic.
So good.
And now we move into the crazy shit. of the episode where we
I like how instead of kind of going down into a tunnel and trying to get their way through a puzzle and three like a car wreck situation, that they're just peacefully walking along, and for the first time they're having fun and smiling, and it's just interrupted.
Right.
I liked it too.
Breaking every rule in the show up until this point for traveling through a city. Every rule, everything that they've told and taught us about traveling in this post-apocalyptic world has been thrown to the wind. And that's what I'm saying. This episode had so many abrupt, like, what are we doing? Like, I was saying, like, why are y'all doing this? Get to a building, get to a wall, get somewhere.
They're almost like too relaxed, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. They're out in the middle of the day, like just right there on Front Street. Don't they know there's a giraffe next door? They can get trampled.
Yeah, but I think that fits like where the characters are at from an emotional state. Like
I don't think that makes any sense whatsoever. This isn't an emotional state travel. This is you're traveling in a world that can eat you. Like you think they just forget that all of a sudden because they want to tell puns?
I mean, it's not the first time they've walked down a city street in the show, though. It's not like they're like
an unprotected, unorganized, unoccupied city street. I think it was.
Yeah, they're kind of like distracted. I don't know about that.
It's just a plot flaw. I mean, it's called a plot hole. They happen.
I don't think it's not a plot hole.
That's like the literal definition of a plot
I don't
hole.
think
They established it in the
hole.
plot and they ignored it later. It's a plot hole. It's okay though, because they distracted us with the smiling and the joke book and the time that healed in. I get it.
You can think that the
character done good if they were in a dark building in the shadows and all that, but you put them out there where the sun is shining bright on them. It's a new day. It's a happy moment. They did it to deliver their scene effectively, and they did. So much so that a lot of people forgot they're walking around on Front Street in the middle of an unoccupied city in this world.
Yeah, including them, right?
Including them.
Yeah, but that doesn't make it a plot hole. You can think that's stupid, but I
don't think it's stupid. I think it's a plot hole. I don't think it's stupid because I think it was an effective way to film that scene, and I think the showrunners knew exactly what they were doing in order to deliver that scene as strong as possible, and that worked so well that I didn't even care that it was a plot hole. Plot holes are okay and stuff. My goal right here in this scene, in this moment, is to deliver this emotional beat. That's more important than having them doing that scene while they're trying to unlock a door or crawl through a roof or something, I don't know. I think it worked, but it was another little moment there in this episode.
I can certainly agree that there's a level of complacency from Joe as he begins to open himself and make Ellie more of a priority, as we spend this entire season watching Joel be on tippy toes and paying attention to everything and being on point. Now Ellie is his priority, but less from a security standpoint and more of an emotional standpoint. He's attempting to emotionally save her after the last episode, and that's where his focal point becomes.
Yeah, new Joel's about to get her killed in the middle of the road, trampled by giraffes.
I still got to go back to a comment that we didn't talk about earlier, because I was saving it for when we got here, and I don't know if I'm going to find it fast enough. But this was a really good one where I got to find it. I'm surprised. No, it's way further back. They talked about, somebody in the chat was like, they saw all of the giraffe walking around. They're like, the first thought in their mind was, that's a lot of meat that could feed a lot of people.
Yeah. It's true. I wonder what giraffe tastes like.
In this world, it's got to be a delicacy, right?
Something. I mean, it could be pretty high on the food chain.
There's got to be quite a few giraffes too. 20 years of giraffes mating.
Something, but like I like how they add that little tidbit post-apocalyptic world, a major city with a major zoo. What happens is the animals just start to take over.
Oh, a good zookeeper a good zookeeper would run and just pop locks on every door on their way out.
And let everything run free. So where's the lions?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, they're out there. If the giraffes are there, they're out there. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to see some lions ravaging people in the Last of Us universe.
That'd be
actually.
Cool.
Well,
or just it being a concern. You have to walk around with that. It's another thing you have to be on your toes about. Another reason, if you will, to not walk around on Front Street in broad daylight.
I mean, the
I'm
broad
just
daylight.
messing with you at this point now, Jackson. I'm just
No,
messing-
I get it. I get where you're coming from to an extent, but it's like
yeah.
they're guarded. It's not like Emperor Palpatine came back to life 30 years later and there's
Yeah,
no
and I also took into
throwing
consideration too. One thing we learned about the first city that we came across is all the infected were in the buildings.
They like the dark, I believe.
Yeah.
It's not like they were distracted by both their moms being Martha.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, right.
Not at
yes. No, but that's a good point too. Is like, I think that they seem, and this is something I know people have complained that there's not enough infected in the show overall. But I feel like they kind of know how to handle the infected at this point, right? Jesus Christ. There can't be much meat on the leg of a giraffe. Like
Yeah.
a giraffe chicken wing, like a giraffe leg, probably not very meaty, but
Well, you know what does have a lot of meat?
the ending of the show.
The hospital scene as we
Yes.
as we dive into that. Good Lord. And actually,
What is up, Izzy?
what I like about this is we go into this. The hospital scene was delivered in a way that I didn't know or anticipate. It's not romanticized. It's not an action flick. They didn't portray it as a big glorified action scene. They took all of the sounds that you would hear if you were in Joel's shoes and put them and played second fiddle to, with no pun intended there, to Gustavo's music, some of the saddest music. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's also the extremely sad music that we played during episode 3 during Bill and Frank's last day. And that was interesting because what we get to see here after that part of Joel and Marlene discussing, Marlene's basically like, take him out to the highway, drop him with his pack, leave him with the pocket knife, and if he tries anything funny, shoot him. And that's essentially the most interaction you get with him and her after a little bit of talk about what's happening with Ellie. And then they start walking him out, and you start seeing him picking out details of location. And then essentially there's like a switch. A switch turns as Joel, his brain turns on fight or flight, and he chooses fight.
Oh yeah, you see when it switched though, right?
Yep.
Because like he got to the direction sign, the directory sign, and as soon as he was traveling to a point that was no longer toward her, he switched.
And if you go back to that point where that was the Y in the road for Joel, and when you get to that point, what happens is the audio in the hospital starts dropping. And I don't remember if it was a fast drop or if it was a slow, but all of a sudden when you get to there, the audio within the hospital that Joel or you as the viewer are hearing becomes second fiddle, if you will, to what is almost like a fog of war. And you hear that each shell casing drop, you get to see each body. It's not a romanticized action scene. It's purely Joel turning off everything and turning on fight mode.
We should probably talk a little bit about like why, like what is presented to Joel here, right? So they get knocked out, they get separated. Joel wakes up. They tell him that basically Ellie is going in for surgery. He's wondering, what do you need surgery for? So they tell him basically that she's going to die because there's a reasonable chance that this cordyceps that's in her brain will lead to a cure for the virus. They also specifically tell him that she wasn't told. She is comfortable. She doesn't know any of this. She's ignorant to the fact that this is what they're doing. And basically, you need to go, because they realize that, like, okay, I think Marlene realizes, like, oh, okay, Joel's really attached to her.
It's a different Joel than what she experienced a year ago.
Yes.
Well, she asked a lot of questions. They had a big interaction here. She said, I came here with 5 heavily armed, trained escorts, and I barely made it here alive, and a lot of them didn't. But y'all 2 were here. How did y'all do it, Joel? She even made the comment, like, you're the last person I want to owe a favor to, and now I owe a big one to. And I also want to ask y'all for y'all's take, because I don't know how it is in the video game. They're not developing a cure. They've called it that, but now that they've described it to us and what they want to do with it, they pretty much think that Ellie's ghosting. They think that Ellie has developed her whole life with the cordyceps in her developing along with her that causes her to release a pheromone almost that makes her invisible to cordyceps. They don't necessarily, they can see and hear her as a person, but they recognize her as an already infected. So they're ghosting cordyceps.
No, because they still try to bite her. They still try to attack
That's
her.
what I just said. They still recognize her as a sound and a human and all this and that, but they said like they think she's a cordyceps. They said that they.
Yeah, well, you're right. So when the cordyceps, to your point, I think you're right. So the cordyceps would enter her, and it would be like, oh, this is already taken.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and
I'm saying that the fear of bodily
Yeah.
harm is still there, but they're trying to ghost it.
Yeah, so they're trying to whatever. I mean, the point is basically whatever
They'll
this
still have
quote-unquote-
cordyceps like growing in them, right? Does Ellie have like a limit on how? Because like that's
Yeah.
what I was curious about the unexplained science, which is fine not to explain it, but I'm just wondering what y'all would speculate on it being that y'all have more experience with it.
I don't know. So they don't. This is like exactly like the game. Anything they don't tell you here wasn't told to you in the game either. But I don't know if they're like going to basically do the same thing to other people, or if there's something in there in her brain stem that they can study to create whatever vaccine they're going to create or whatever.
Yeah,
But,
well, my thing is they said it's been growing in her
yeah,
at whatever separate kind of rate or whatnot. But we see what happens with people when it grows unchecked in them. They go from person to infected to runner to clicker, and it gets progressively worse. Is that something that Ellie has to worry about in her future? Does she have like, is there some kind of cap, some kind of blocker on it?
No, it's attached to her brainstem, I think they said, and it's dormant essentially.
Oh,
right.
Yeah,
But the point is the only way to get a cure out of her, according to these doctors, is to
get
kill
to
her.
her brain.
Yes.
Yeah, we got to take her brain out.
So now it's like, Joel, we're gonna kill Ellie. You can't have no say in this. Neither does she.
Can't even tell her bye.
No talk.
Right.
No questions.
Yes.
Can't talk to her. She's already sedated. You got to leave.
So this is
Keep in
when
mind the last conversation they had. That last conversation, pretty much him saying, "You're my world," like y'all said. This is their version of saying, "I love you." Blackout, wake up to this reality.
Yes, miserable.
Don't forget the pun book in there before the flashbang went
Yeah.
Oh yeah. In broad daylight on Front Street.
Right.
Now
Yes.
we're here. Now
Yes.
we're here.
Yeah.
And you're saying we can't even see her.
There's a lot of go ahead.
No.
Well, I was just gonna say. So then let's, Andy, you were kind of talking about the
Yeah,
progression
I
of
definitely
when he
jumped the
snaps.
gun there because
No, you're good.
There's more meat on the bones there, especially when Marlene sheds a tear. She promised Anna that she would protect Ellie for life. And Marlene is making the difficult choice to attempt to save her world as she knows it, or the world, the bigger, greater picture. What's good for the goose isn't always good for the gander, so to speak.
Right.
And she sheds that tear, and then we get the departure of those escorts taking Joel out. And it was what, 2 guys? That was it. Even she should have known 2 guys was not going to be enough for a seasoned smuggler and somebody as Joel, not to mention the Joel that she knows now that spent, give or take a year crossing the United States and still surviving and fighting it out. And now having that paternal bond with, is it paternal? Yeah. Well,
Sure.
Having that bond with Ellie and supplanting himself as her father, that 2 people was not going to be enough.
Well, not just that. Look at Solo Wookiee's comment. Worst escort ever. Like, take 10 steps back, bro.
I know, they were right on top of him.
Yeah. So then, what Andy details happened, there's a switch, and this is the small segment where I think that there is a difference in my feeling of how Joel acts here, because in the game, this whole thing is a fighting, like an encounter, right? Like your next goal is to get to Ellie and you've got bad guys shooting at you or whatever. And they introduce this thing, and don't worry, Double O, I'm not going to go into details. They introduce this thing in the second game where, like, when you're in an encounter, the last person left that you're fighting will, like, beg for their life on their knees, and you don't have any choice not to kill them. You kill them.
So we had that little Easter egg in this episode.
Yeah, but the problem is, I feel like when I was watching this, is that, like, in the game when you're playing this part, like, the only people you're killing outside of the doctor at the end are trying to kill you. It's not like any of them get disarmed. None of them beg for their lives. So it almost adds this, like, and I'm Team Joel all the way. I want to 100%. I think these people are sick, disgusting fucks. I don't think that there's a moral question here, personally. But like, it does add a more sadistic nature to what Joel's doing. And in my opinion, in this show, it feels darker to me.
Well,
so
there's no pause, and like Andy was saying earlier, it muted, right? Like, so the sound is muted, and you're hearing music. So this is like almost like a montage type thing, where there's no doubt of what's happening here. No one's gonna stop him. Nothing's gonna happen. He's getting through.
No one's more calm than Joel right now.
Right, but there's parts in this where the bad guys have clearly lost. Like he's executing people who aren't a threat to him in the moment anymore.
But they could be.
In the show.
There was just one. That's why I said you kind of got that Easter egg. You had one guy that put his gun down, and Joel killed anyway.
Okay, fine. There's one then. Either way,
that's what I'm saying. What you described, I feel like they had an Easter egg in there then, because I wasn't aware of that, but I remember that last guy he took out after when he turns the corner, the guy puts his gun down, and he has his hands up in the camera. Camera turns to Joel, and he doesn't even hesitate.
He's out to murder everyone.
Yeah, rightfully so.
Yeah, but he's already done this with those two guys with the cannibals.
Yeah, but
he didn't care. He killed the one, popped his knee, and then the guy's like, "I'm not going to tell you," and he killed him anyway. Like, he's saving Ellie. He doesn't care.
It felt darker to me. To me, that's like.
This is the Joel before we met Joel.
Mm-hmm.
This is the survival Joel from Texas to Boston to the QZ when him and Tommy were running with the Fireflies, and Tommy became a Firefly, and Joel said, "Why do you believe in that? We don't need that to do what we're doing." And they talked about some of the dark things they did. This is the Joel that we didn't.
Right. That's
I would argue this is episode 1 through 8 Joel.
So what here? Let me. I have to say this. So before I say anything else, I'm going to tell you, as you know, if you watch the show, I am 100% Team Joel. I will say that before what I'm about to say next. So I wrote this down like right after watching this episode yesterday. In a traditional story, Joel is the villain. He stops the good guys from saving the world due to his selfish beliefs. If I was in his shoes, I would have done exactly the same thing. I'm not saying that I disagree with him. However, they're trying to save the world. If you think about any other game you played or most other games you played, most of the shows you've watched, most of the things, the good guys are trying to do what their method isn't. Killing a little girl is not.
That's the problem.
That's the problem, of course. But they're trying to save the world, and he's the villain that stops them from saving the world.
Give me one thing on this.
Yeah.
If you just interchange characters, if we're just trying to talk from a moral standpoint of heroes and villains here, replace Joel with Superman. That simple. That's killing a child is never, ever, ever under any scenario, no matter how big or small, the answer. It's never the moral.
Yeah, but Superman ain't going in and fucking.
No, I'm just saying, like, I'm just using that because that's just the most classic. There's a better
you're right.
Character that's ever existed. But
you're right. So
there's no good guy in this scenario because people have to die. Period.
Now that's exactly what this series was written to portray. Was that debate that we're having now is who's evil, who's good, like
all of them.
We're this, what it does is it's human. These are ordinary people in an extraordinary situation, and they're just trying to survive. So they're erasing that line of good and evil. It depends on where you stand and where your perspectives are at. Now, I'll argue a point in a little bit here, not even argue, I'll debate a little bit. I still think the world was saved, but it's about perspective here. And as we continue going forward, I got one question for you guys too.
Wait, are you Team Firefly, Andy?
That's what I was.
Wait a minute.
I'm
out of here.
I still after this, after all said and done at the end here, the world was saved, but the world was saved for one person, for Ellie. Joel saved the world for one person.
For himself.
Well,
For
win.
Yeah.
You win, Andy. You win.
I like, okay,
Like,
this is where I think Druckmann's a
perspective.
bit of a hack writer, storyteller, because I feel like, and I know there's probably people out there, plenty of them who disagree with me, but I feel like if you're morally questioning this ending, you should seek professional help. Like, he does absolutely, she should not die without giving consent because of this possibility that you're going to save the world.
Yeah, I was about to say, we know
Like,
two things for certain. Like, we know for certain Ellie was going to die, and we know for certain they don't know if it'll work.
even if it would work, like, I still, like, I don't think that Druckmann, who created this story, and honestly, I don't think this was that big of a debate before the second game came out. I think they did a lot of things throughout this series to soften the blow of the second game, which we won't get into. But, like, I feel like the first game and this works, like, this is the ending. And to me, like, I can't imagine when the first game came out, maybe I'm wrong, I wasn't around on the message boards when the first game came out. I can't imagine there was a high percentage of people that were questioning Joel's actions and saving Ellie.
In fact, that's one of the things they talk about in the podcast is after the first game came out, they actually pulled test people that were playing the game before the game released. And at the end of the game, if the person answering the question was a parent, they immediately, 100% of the people that were parents sided with Joel's decision. 100%. That's what they talked about. So during the test paneling, anybody that played the game that was a parent sided with Joel immediately. Anybody else that was not a parent, they said it was a split 50-50 decision right down the middle of siding with Joel and not siding with Joel.
I feel like they're lying. Like, I'm not a parent. I don't even think it's a question.
Well, that's just the selfishness in people across the board. That's uniform selfishness. If you're a parent, you love that child more than everything, including the world around you, everything. If you're not a parent, you can either selfishly, like, relate to that, or you're selfishly thinking of yourself. I want the cure. Like, it's just,
I don't know. It's like, I think it's the way that they do it that is so evil and disgusting, right? Like, it's not like they sit the two of them down in a room and say, like, hey, let's talk about this. Let's present all the options, all the possibilities.
No, they take without giving her a choice.
Correct. Which is,
Marlene is convinced that that's what Ellie would choose, whether or not.
And
that's
she might be
true.
right. She
Yeah,
might
whether or
be
not-
right. Yeah.
But she's
And
convinced that Ellie does want this. This is what Ellie would want to do.
Yeah. And she's probably right, but I don't think it matters.
no, like, that's something too. Like, as I watch this, no context of what comes after, conversations that happen in later games. I'm like, oh, I can't believe they would do this to this kid. Then you watch the showrunners and the creator himself after the episodes do those little 5-minute after episode perspective
great.
things. They straight up said, the creators of this said that Ellie would have wanted it to happen.
Right.
Well, I'm like, the fuck? You can't just say that. Like,
Well,
where's the context in the show of it?
It gives her hardships and her life purpose. She's lived a life without a family, without a parent, without anything.
I can say all of that after, but where's that in the context of the show?
It doesn't exist, and that's the problem.
That's
where Neil Druckmann, in my opinion, like, kind of fucked this up.
Okay.
And for her to feel that way, Nolan voids Joel.
He wants to pretend that this is this, like, big moral question at the end of the first game, and, like, is Joel morally justified in what he did? And
They're
to me,
manufacturing this debate, is what you're
right.
saying.
Yeah, and he does it. Yeah, and to me, it's like, no, it's not. Not for a second when I played the first game was I like, oh my God, this is fucked up. Joel just, like, doomed the human race. Like, that was not, and I don't know, like, and my wife watching the show, to be honest, it, like, worked a little bit better for her. And I think it's partially because, like, they presented this in such a dark fashion. It wasn't like another action scene in a game. It was very, like, Joel's a fucking monster.
Joel was the
Yeah.
Terminator in this
Right,
episode.
exactly.
Like the way, like every shot, we followed the shell hitting, just smooth motion. Like the way that the scene was timed, it was slowed down just a little bit. He was the Terminator.
But,
And
but
they
what's
showed
awesome, I love being on the side of the badass Terminator ready to
Hell
go in
yeah.
and kill everybody.
Yeah, this was
So it
Terminator
still great.
2.
Yes, correct. Yes. So I don't want like it's one of those things where it's tough because like this game is so special to me, even though I finally just played it, or this story in general is so special to me. And he created this.
What's up, Dave?
Like, regardless of any of the other crap, there you go. There's somebody who disagrees with our perspective, I guess. But like regardless of any of the other crap that happens, I owe him a debt of gratitude for creating this world and this amazing characters and all this shit. But yeah, I just think that I don't think there's as much of a moral quandary here at the end.
Well, yeah, I went through all of this originally through the game and through the show, and I'm with Jackson there, as I didn't feel like there was a big quandary at all, but I like that that's kind of being presented because it's kind of having me dip into the thoughts and processes of other people and starting to remove some of the cloud that is just my perspective. I'm starting to understand what other people think in this, but every shell casing hitting the floor is a body going down. It's a body count. A shell casing hitting the floor is a body count. And I'm with Solo Wookiee in here. He finally, Joel cleans a gun, drops a gun, picks up another gun. The weapons handling was done extremely well, keeping accountability of if the weapon was still loaded. I think the people who, the coaches, whatever they call them, I know some shows and some movies use military advisors. Whoever they use to advise in that weapons handling did a very good job without going all John Wick crazy weapons handling. This seemed very ordinary person in an extraordinary situation that was mindful of his actions. And what I got to ask you guys really quick though is before we get too deep into this and get past it is at one point as he's moving through, somebody pops out and starts providing cover fire for this individual who escapes down the hallway. But do we ever find out who this is? I don't think this person doesn't appear to be armed. It appears to be running away and seems like they've gotten away.
I would just assume he killed him in the next room.
Yeah.
I think he just murdered him, dude.
No, he cleaned up so thoroughly that he was confident with picking up Ellie and carrying her out of there.
See now, because
that's a good point too.
There's the guy providing cover, and then there's that guy escaping all the way down the other end of the hallway. So I'm kind of curious on what happened there, how that, and maybe it's just there's nothing to it. It's somebody giving up and running away from that situation, because he did clean up. He kept moving and did clean up.
Maybe they shot another like little section in there where he shoots that guy in the face or something, and then they were just edited it out for time. I assume he killed everybody. That was my assumption.
To the point. This was the guy that surrendered, like Mark was saying, and Joel still removes that threat.
Just shoots him. Yeah. Like this didn't like everyone in the game that you kill is trying to kill you, and that's because partially could just be because it's a game, and if something's not shooting at you, you don't have a like task at hand. But yeah, he's very murderous in this. Very murderous. It was fun as hell to watch. It just made him darker. I mean, luckily I still love Joel. So
oh, you know what? I think I just answered it for myself. As he moves further down the hallway, there's a guy hiding in a room behind a bed that may have been him. I guess I'm just.
And did he murder him?
That's when his Mini 14 goes empty, and then he pulls out the pocket knife and switchblade, and then picks up the AR from the floor, and continues moving on. And it's Jackson. Yeah, I mean, I'm Team Joel. I'm still Team Joel, but this just hallway scene reminds me of some graphic hallway scenes in like Punisher Warzone and some other stuff where
that's what Pop said in the chat.
Oh, did he really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's very
Warzone on the Fireflies.
It's and I've brought this up multiple times, but there have been many things throughout the series that they've put in there, I feel, to lessen the craziness that is the second game. Because in the second game, the characters take turns from a personality standpoint that they've already kind of laid the breadcrumbs out in the first game, to kind of lessen that blow mentally when you see it happen in the second game. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, without going into spoilers, but I feel like this was one of those where it's like, we have to make Joel seem more morally questionable in what he did than it was in the first game.
Pops brings up a really good point here to add to this. Ellie thought that her and Joel had a future after they got the cure from her, so she had no idea they planned to kill her.
Right.
Ellie thought she was going to wake up from this too.
Yes, that's what's so fucked. That's what's.
But not according to the show creators after the show airs.
Well, they're saying that had she known that she would die, she would still go through with it because it gives her life meaning. That's what they're saying. But to your point, like, she's asleep. You don't know that. Like,
everyone Pops hasn't played the game. That's literally my Pops. He hasn't played the game. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're all experiencing this from first time here.
Yeah, there's no reason morally justifiable to not tell her what the stakes are.
Yeah.
Like,
and it's kind of weird, like, this, because someone mentioned the point earlier, like, what's up with the sample? You know, why are they just jumping straight to, like, emergency rush, kill this girl? She's made it this far. She won't make it another day. We got to do it now. Like, dude, once you offer for that sample, you're done. You're giving yourself one shot at this. You're not like spinal tapping, or you're doing nothing. You're doing nothing. You're just.
We're not supposed to think that much, apparently. But yes, you're right. But it's true. Like, yeah, this is like within, I mean, how long have they been there? An hour, maybe two? Like,
yeah, he only got clocked with a gun. He's going to wake up in a reasonable amount of time.
Yeah, same day.
But yeah.
Dave's next comment. Dave works in the medical field. Like, so his perspective on that kind of stuff. You never think about that.
Yeah. Has anybody ever tried to carry somebody like that? It's quite awkward. Like, yeah.
How would you be alive just being yoked off of anesthesia and taken out?
Well,
stop ruining it. Stop ruining it.
Damn near probably broke her neck trying to carry her like that. Just like,
hey, Jackson, you know what that's called? A plot. I'm just messing.
That's not a plot hole either. That's just.
So, this is a really good point. As we,
he did leave the nurses. Yeah.
As we start to venture down this hallway, I think they did a really good job shooting this. That well-lit room at the very end and down this hallway in the pediatrics hospital, or the pediatrics wing, where you get the elephant, you get the animals painted on the side, you get a very subtle image of a giraffe painted on the wall as he's going down, because he there's no tiptoeing around this once we get to that room and what took place.
Yeah, he didn't light him on fire, 00, by the way.
I was hoping.
Yeah, I mean, and that was like,
okay,
that's another thing too. Is like, it just emphasizes how sick what these, like, you know, Mangala style doctors are doing. Like, it's like a little kid's wing, and here's this little innocent girl who's being murdered down the hall. So I thought it was good. It was great.
Yeah. I mean, they really did. I'm getting anxiety again, just kind of thinking about this in the gameplay and in the show and going down the hallway. And I just want to get right to oh God. Yeah.
That scene when he walked in there was awesome.
It blows my mind that this doctor thinks that this guy is not going to shoot him and just grabs a scalpel to walk right at him.
I'm not letting you take her at it.
Okay. Like, the arrogance of this doctor. Actually, doctors are pretty arrogant. This makes a lot of sense.
Textbook definition: never bring a knife to a gunfight.
Dude, don't talk trash about this doctor. You know better, Andy. We know how good of a person he is and how his soul is so amazing.
What you're saying now is going to make I'm
He's
gonna
saving animals from chain link fences, and come on,
I'm
Andy.
gonna lose sleep because now I'm gonna start collecting coins and wondering who's sneaking up behind me.
So, Mark, just so you know, in the game, this scene is like almost verbatim from the
Yeah.
game.
Yeah.
And when we first started doing this show, I told Jackson that I played the game like right before watching the show. Again, you know, and in the game, one of the weapons you can pick up is a flamethrower.
Oh God!
So I came into this room and I barbecued everybody in this room with a flamethrower.
Without hesitation.
No hesitation. I came in and just took them all out. I was saving Ellie and I was getting out of there. And my wife is over there just like she's cracking up over there. Like, what are you doing? I'm like, I just took the flamethrower out and just
doing the Lord's work.
Yeah, absolutely, I was.
I've seen videos too, like where people come in the final scene and like shoot him in the foot, and he just drops dead immediately.
Yeah. Anything in that hitbox, he's gone.
Yes.
Yeah, is there in the final scene of this game, is it like one of those like choose your own ending games? Like where you can choose to let them go through with the procedure?
No.
Because there's even clips of the video game of people trying to shoot Ellie on the operating table and nothing happens.
Then why the hell is there even a debate if Joel did the right thing if that's the only option?
Well,
hey, stand by for season 2.
It's about choice, right? I mean, the bulk of the people that choose to play the game, how many of them actually try to shoot Ellie and then realize that there really is no choice? Not many. Most people choose.
No. Because there is no choice, guys.
Yeah, it's the image.
We're being fooled into thinking that there's like a choice here, but the only choice is to save Ellie for any decent human being that walks the face of the earth. That's my opinion. I know that's not true.
It would have been a lot funnier.
Now, without adding any spoilers, there's one of the two nurses back there is a voice actor for within the second video game. We'll say that much. So as we start getting further into when they hit season 2 or something like that, we just make a mental note here on the show that one of those two nurses in the background, that Mark, like you said earlier, they're making kind of a play at this, bringing voice actors from the games in to the show. They did it here as well. They did it so
they look like twins.
Yeah, they did it so subtly that nobody knew until HBO released the information that yes, this voice actor was in the show for the very end.
Nice.
Because I like that Jackson kind of had a wondering and had a thought, and it was partially accurate.
Well, why don't I wish Joel would have killed her? Would have made a hell of a lot more sense.
That was a nice little touch, though. He drops the doctor, he tells the nurses, unhook her. And as soon as they do, he immediately says, cover her arm. Because you saw him unhook her, and there's just like one bead of blood. And he wasn't even having that. Cover her arm. Like, he saw that as harm to her, like, fix it now.
Yep.
No, I mean, there was overall, I know I railed on the whole dark Joel thing. It was great. It was fun to watch. It emotionally was fine. And it led to the beautiful ending that I was dying for, that I got. So I can't be upset, right?
You thought that was a beautiful ending?
The ending. Like
well,
the actual ending.
This is one of the things that I want to touch bases on before we close out, is they leave you for a split second. One, I'm like, oh my God, well, my brain can't get past the fact that there's a car on a charger down there with the lights on. Like, who was prepping this car and getting ready to run away when all of this took place or happened? What was going on with Marlene? Got it, and she was probably prepping this to run away. But what happens is the way this cutscene, it's pulled right from the game, like these guys are saying. It's verbatim. You get to see this happen.
The battery's being charged, right? That's what we're looking at.
That's what we're looking at right there. I was just kind of making a point of that, but it cuts in 2 or 3 different ways. Marlene shows up, and it cuts to something else, and then it cuts back. He shoots Marlene, then loads, then it cuts. He shoots Marlene, and then it just cuts, and then it cuts to Joel in the car solo, looking forward, like shaking his head, kind of like he disagrees with what he did, like leaving the viewer that's never played the game. I want to hear what your thoughts were when you saw that, when it cut from that shot to him in the car solo and you didn't see anything yet. What was going through your mind?
That him and Ellie were leaving. Like I didn't think for 1 second he was solo.
So you didn't think for 1 second that he left her there with Marlene?
No, not for 1 second, dude. I didn't even. When it cut to that, I'm like, dude, he just killed her too. I didn't think for 1 second she was walking out. You don't do what he just did and leave someone behind. He's smarter than that. Like the nurses, I mean, they're non-threats at that point. You got an idea. The doctor was a non-threat. He was a nuisance. You know, if that doctor wouldn't have picked up the scalpel, he didn't have to die. But Marlene, man, I wish she would have done it slower. But I knew he got her. 100% knew he got her.
See, the only thing in the back of my head that left me with a lot of anxiety was that Bella Ramsey tweet that said fans would be divided. And I read too far into that thinking, oh my God, they've been changing subtle things in the game. Are they going to change this and create a different story and have it arc off differently than what the games were?
No,
that would have been cool.
We just know that she's been given a script for the second season.
Who?
Ellie.
Oh.
Or actress who plays Ellie.
Yeah, I thought it was a cool scene though, the way it cut back to it. I guess that was more for the people in the know in the game because there wasn't even a second thought. I wasn't even questioning.
It's well done. Yeah, I like it. I like what they did.
And then on top of that, I love the aspect that the one shot didn't do it. He shot her, went back, loaded up Ellie, made sure she was okay, heard her still making noise, went over there, listened to her beg.
You know, and that's the thing is like he's giving you a perfect reason for why he's murdering her. Like he's literally telling you, like, I can't leave you alive because you won't relent. You will come after us.
Yeah,
right. So that one works really well.
I still was tugged a little away when Joel closes his eyes in the car and he just kind of shakes his head. I was tugged a little bit. It's wonderful depiction of the emotion a lot of people have every day on this earth. A man looks a baby girl and earnestly thinks, I'll kill anyone that tries to hurt you.
Mm-hmm. And I think that Joe, like for me personally, when I see him driving, shaking his head, you know how much adrenaline that guy just used up? And he's still not stopping. He's trying
that's aggressively relaxing. And what you're talking about, that is no joke. Because until I became a father, I knew what it was like to battle fight or flight. My time in the Marine Corps and what they do to train you to harness that fight instinct and to not panic and to not become fearful. And you utilize your body's hormones and adrenaline and everything to remain calm and become that predator. Like that's what you see. That's how people are trained to act and respond. And after I left the Marine Corps and kind of turned normal again and kind of settled into life, it wasn't until I had a child, and that child was that point of like if somebody was going to bump into him or knock him over or something like that. I hadn't felt that primal instinct of fight or flight, like grab and run or start duking out. I hadn't felt that for 15 years. And that primal charge is so built into us.
Yeah, now it's there every day. You know, all you gotta do is tap and release.
Yep. And now that I realize that my kid will bounce at least once and he'll get some bumps and bruises and everything's fine. You know what I mean? Like you kind of learn the ebbs and flows of parenthood. That I get it, is what I'm trying to say. But yeah, to continue moving right along, that was, I think the last thing really to touch on was
the saga of Talkie Joe being awkward. That's what we need to touch on.
Talkie Joe or Talkie Joel?
I
Joel.
love the very end is so good.
Well, you get the conversation in the car as well with her waking up. And, it turns out that, there's a lot of y'all. There's not a cure. They figured out, after all this and everything. They said they're not even looking for one anymore. Let me just go completely off the fucking rails over explaining this lie. Like, I'm like, dude, chill. Just say shit hit the fan. We had to bail out of there fast. Don't know who's left alive. We just had to go.
Well, he knows she's going to ask specifics.
Yeah, so he gave it the worst answer in the world without her really even asking for all that stuff. Like he just started on a tangent and didn't stop.
Oh, I mean, I suppose you could say that.
He had so long to prepare a story. He had so long. He was driving for a hot minute. They were out of the city limits at least.
This seems like somebody who is not this seems the typical male, like father, like
He's-
1960s, 70s, 80s, that's not in touch with their emotions, that wants to quickly explain away emotional situation without getting knee deep into the conversation. Take this lie and run with it, and let's move on with our lives and move away from this emotional thing. Whereas I can understand where you're coming at from the,
Look, keep on 20 years seasoned survivalist in post-apocalyptic politics. This guy's a liar through and through. All the dealings with the Firefly, running around with his old lady from this, like this dude's got a poker face to win it all. Like he has to. Like he's established as that kind of survivalist badass. Like he's been lying to everybody about who Ellie is alone in this. But just think of what comes with this package of Joel. Like we didn't get to see all that, but it's established. This dude's a badass. No one wants to be in his pocket. No one wants this and that. Like he's the guy to get it done. Like he's running around the black market selling drugs to Fedra and like he's
but you're describing
a liar.
Lies to be an asshole, but this is not. He's not usually lying to protect the well-being mental state of someone he loves and himself in this way. Like this is a very different situation than he's used to.
Just to tell a lie.
I mean, it's not just a lie to him. Like he knows that this lie could break his entire relationship with the only person that he has loved.
And I think that was the part that divided me, because I don't feel like it would have. Like he could have been like, yo, they're about to kill you, and I didn't let him.
There's a fair amount of self-preservation here too.
Right, because he knows she's gonna be pissed.
Why would he assume she would be pissed? From what we know from watching it, from us, the viewers watching it, not from what we know comes after. There's no reason to assume.
That's not true. She's made it very apparent that like her reason for being in this world, like she finally has a reason, and it's this thing that she's been gifted with. Like there's nothing else that has given her any purpose.
All the people that died, all those things
had
to mean something.
Yep.
And she wanted to carry it out, and she wanted to go and do whatever it took to get there, with what she told him during the giraffes.
Right before they got fucking
even on Main Street. Yeah.
I got none of those vibes that this girl's okay with them just quietly murdering her. None of those vibes.
Even before they get to Kansas City, I think she makes a statement about this. This has to mean something. It has to be something.
No. And maybe she isn't, like, she probably would also agree that it's morally fucked up that they didn't ask her about it. But if she knows that she would have gone through with it, then that really doesn't matter. Like, you know what I mean? Like if they would have asked her, like, look, we have a 80% chance of a cure, but you have to die, Ellie would have said yes.
Yeah, I just don't feel like that was established in the show. I'm not saying that that's not true, because the guy who wrote the show said it after the show was over.
Well, but Joel knows that there's like a good chance that that's true. Like Joel doesn't just assume that she would be okay with his decision. You know,
I for sure want to take this and go back and rewatch the whole season start to finish in a weekend and try to pick up more on what Mark's pointing out too.
Yeah, but I mean, the point is that he's lying to protect her and himself here, right? And it's
which I'm saying is unnecessary. I get what you're saying, but I think
I think it works so well. I think it's the best ending of any fucking. I was like, it floored me in the game. It floors me here. I think it works me in a sense well.
It just came out stupid to me. So
again, you think that he should just tell her the truth, right?
Because why wouldn't he? Like, what is she going to do? Be mad, kick a rock for a minute or two? What's her other option? She's going to go hang out with her other dad?
If she knows that Joel brutally murdered the people that were going to, like, her entire existence, this entire year, all she's been looking to do is get to these people so that she can have a purpose and be a cure.
And Joel just murdered. But that's not what it was. That's what she was. That's what she was trying to do. But that's not what the reality turned out to be. So just it
was the reality.
Oh, you thought you were going to come here and become the catalyst of a cure. Well, they were going to cut your fucking brain out. That changed everything in that moment.
Right. But just like they didn't give her any agency to make that choice, Joel didn't either.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's why I think it's dumb. Now we're on the same page. That's why I think it's dumb.
I mean,
Like, he
she
did-
would be. I totally disagree, dude. I think she'd be
Yeah,
pissed at him, and he knows that.
I think they're forcing her to be pissed. I'm saying that's my thing. Like, if they were going to make her out to be this character that's going to fall on the sword, they should have established that, because nothing about this show going in blind
Ooh.
screams that she's ready just to go carve me up, let me save the world. She wants to save the
Well,
world.
that
but
would
no,
if
I don't
she's
see that, like,
if she
mm.
said that, then Joel wouldn't have tried to save her at the end. If she said that, that makes the entire ending pointless.
Well,
that's-
they never
that's
would have
my
left
point.
Boston
They
then.
didn't have to have
Right.
her say it to Joel. There could have been, like, you know what I'm saying? There's no context to her believing that. Like, to convincing me, the viewer, with just these 9 episodes, that Ellie would have been cool with Joel not saving her.
I
I
feel
think
like,
Ellie would have wanted the choice. Ellie
Right.
would have wanted a choice to whether or not she wanted to do the procedure.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Or whatever. And so she didn't get the choice from the Fireflies or from Joel.
right.
Yeah.
So she can't do anything about the Fireflies. But Joel is right there in front of her.
Mhm.
So if she's going to be pissed at somebody, she's going to be pissed at Joel for not letting her make that choice.
Yeah. Now, do I think that like she would have been pissed maybe forever? Who knows? But the point is that Joel doesn't feel comfortable telling her what just happened.
Yeah, I think it was just awkward. But to me, it just seemed like, all right, again, I have no game context here. I think y'all got a lot
It's
of
the
game.
same. It's the same.
No, I'm not talking about the show. I'm talking about like the beyond the game,
Sure,
playing the
yeah.
second game. There's clearly a lot of context that goes into this finale, comes after this finale.
Yeah, it's
Where they'll
awful,
go from here.
awful context.
Yeah,
So
but I'm just saying, like, because I'm looking at the chat from these other people that didn't play the game, and there's very similar things here. Like, you should have just told her. Should have just told her. Not a big deal. Blah blah blah. So I'm clearly not crazy here. Just going by just the show, they don't really make it out to be like that.
well, he
Which
probably
is fine. But what that does for me, a viewer who's this is just the first walkthrough, that wasn't like some crazy ending. Like, oh my god, it was just like, why did y'all end it there? Why didn't y'all let them fuss about it real quick and get that scene out of the way? The inevitable, oh, we're gonna bicker over this and we're gonna act distant and not tell each other what the truth is, but we both know we know the truth and we just don't have the balls to tell each other, kind of thing. And why don't we just get past that scene?
But that's that underlying, that lie is there and is going to continue to eat
Yes.
away at the relationship.
That's what I'm saying. Like, can't we just get past that annoying old trope?
No, that's
Or
what
did
they,
make that out to
they,
be like a
they
big
don't.
deal?
They don't want you to get past that though,
Mhm.
because they want that to be an ever-present irritation in their relationship in your mind.
It's an irritation in me as the viewer, because I think that's just a boring thing to really
I don't-
have wedge between them. I don't know how they're going to execute it and play it out, but they just spent this entire series bringing them together for letting something as simple as "I saved your life" to be what drives them apart.
So you thought it was boring, but you still think it was irritating.
No, I think that trope is boring. Like, we're
Right.
lying to each other,
So
and
you're
we
still
both
there?
know we're lying, because that's done countless times through cinema and books and stuff. Like, that's a
what
one of those
hasn't
classic-
been done?
No, exactly. But I'm saying that's a classic trope, and this show
I know,
is
but what-
so
what-
fresh.
What
This
hasn't?
show-
I don't know, man. If
If
you
I
had told
tell
her,
you,
has
it'll have
that
been
never
done.
been done? I mean,
But
nobody's
I'm
ever
saying,
had
like,
a conflict.
is that just not like just like that? That's exciting to you? Like, oh, we.
I think it's amazing. I love the concept of it ending with her being like, "Look, swear to me that what you're saying is true," and him saying, "Yep, it's true." Fuck
I
it.
think
I'm
if
hanging
I
on
could
to
put this into some context as well, what you might feel is boring, I feel is extremely relatable.
Yeah. And
Like-
also, I don't know what they're going to do with it. That's just being cut off right there.
Yeah.
You know
It's
what I mean?
it.
Like,
I will say this. Let me put it this way. I have to very much compartmentalize the two games. Knowing the second game makes the first game worse, in my opinion. So you're coming at it. You're going to hate it more than I do.
probably.
Like I'm not saying that.
And I don't
like-
hate it.
like-
I just like
no,
it.
no. But I'm just saying,
You know
like
what I mean?
the shit that happens, in my opinion, in the second game, we won't get into. There's a couple things I like here and there, but overall, I think it takes away from the story of the first game.
Oh, I feel you.
So,
yeah.
like when I'm giving this positive review, I'm pretending that second game does not exist because I think it kind of ruins this ending. But if you don't like it in the first place,
I just thought it was I'm not saying I don't like it. I enjoyed the episode. Like, on a scale of red to green, this one's still green. Like, definitely green. But I just thought, I don't know. I thought like for such a dynamic show whose whole thing has been like their little mantra while they're making this, if we look at the game and we want to change something, does it make it worse? Does it keep it the same? We don't change it. Can we make it better? We'll change it. I just have a hard time thinking that they couldn't have come up with a cool, like a deeper stinger.
That's funny. That's funny because I almost every episode of this show, and these guys will attest, I was saying like, you change this ending, we riot. Like that's how good I think it is.
He's right.
Yeah,
he's
I'm not
right.
saying like massively change it, but like I don't know. It just felt like I just didn't feel complete when it ended, if that makes sense.
So the other thing that's powerful about it, in my opinion, is that like they just broke the ice and were finally opened with each other.
Yeah, that's
like,
a good
they
point
were
too.
finally
just little shit too.
And this just fucking ruined it. This just like Joel thinks that he's preserving the relationship, but he's actually poisoning it further.
Yeah.
But did you get the vibe that they were like really blossoming? Because I kind of got these vibes, and Andy made the comment earlier that it immediately went straight to my file folder. Joel chipping away at that ice case or that glass case that she's in by just being like really talkative and overbearing at times. I just felt like I got the vibes that Joel was annoying this girl in this episode.
Oh yeah, I don't. Maybe because she just didn't want to deal with it at the time, but
she didn't want to talk. He's just.
But like he finally started talking about his daughter. He finally started talking about what happened to him when he tried to kill himself. Like all these things happened, and now he's just created this locked box that is forever going to sit there and stew in their relationship. And he thinks he's doing the right thing by lying to her.
Well, even before this scene, you know, like just watching them interact on this different level with him being the more extrovert.
Yeah.
Yeah, she just seemed like annoyed by it.
She's upset because she knows he's full of shit.
I'm talking before the saving.
Well, the before stuff, she's upset because she literally almost got raped.
Right.
So she just went through trauma.
Yeah.
So she's having a traumatic, like, what, PTSD? I don't know what you would call that. I've never been in that situation. But
did we establish the time gap in the episodes?
Well, we talk about it was winter in the lakeside resort, and now it's essentially spring. So we're talking 3 to 4 months.
I don't even know if it's been that long.
I don't think
even if it has, that doesn't take away from like the different dynamic of Ellie. Like we have a different Joel here. We can have a more, I mean, for lack of a better word, traumatized Ellie after those events too.
So maybe 1 to 2 months is safer to say, but they didn't drive down to Mexico. Like they just went to Salt Lake City from the lakeside resort. That's like a day or two walk essentially.
Yeah, look at Solo Wookiee's comment. Time to find a competent doctor. They clearly exist in this world.
I mean, that's a fair point.
Yep.
But in like show logic, it would ruin the show, so you can't do it. That's the problem. I mean, that's the problem with TV and movies sometimes, right? It's like
you can't be too competent.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I don't even couple of days walk. I don't know, but I mean, you go from a hell of a lot of snow to no snow, and they're not wearing coats or hats or anything. They don't have to fight to stay warm. So my guess is knowing kind of that belt line, that winter belt line in the country, is they probably just edged into springtime.
I'm shocked. Like I'm shocked that I'm sure there's more people that didn't like the whole him lying to her thing, but it made perfect sense to me.
I didn't say I didn't like it. I just feel like that. I'm like, that's what people are all like. Because I knew people were like, because we mentioned it last week. This episode's going to divide people. This episode's going to be this. It's a season finale. And I'm like, that's the stinger.
I don't think it's divisive at all.
Then he didn't tell her that, like, who cares if he did? Who cares if he didn't? Kind of thing to me. Like, tell her, yeah, it makes perfect sense. Don't tell her. Cool. Don't move. Don't care.
Well, I will say this: we're definitely going to have a lot of other people's experiences on this to draw from, to learn more, because The Last of Us has outpaced The House of Dragon for viewership on HBO.
That's wild, by the way.
That is not only wild, but it's also now The Last of Us is historically the most watched show on HBO Max in like South America and some other European countries. Most watched show on HBO Max ever. outpaces
Nice.
everything on HBO Max.
I guess Andy, that means we're gonna fast track that season 2 after all.
They did already. They actually announced after episode 3 or 4, they announced season 2 was greenlit, and to the point where Collider did an interview a week or two ago with Pedro Pascal and asked, now that season 2 is greenlit, in theory, could they potentially be filming in 2023? He paused and says, "Oh yeah, what season are we in? Winter, like spring?" Like he's like kind of going to spring. He's kind of thinking in his head, and he's like, "In theory, it's possible that they could be filming season 2 start filming sometime this year." But I still think 2025, that bridge, that gap into from 2024 to 2025, if they stick to the release schedule they had with this, if they want the same release schedule, beginning of 2025 would be the earliest we see it on screen. Because if they start recording or filming in 2023, they're going to need all of 2024 for post production.
No,
The rest of the filming and post production and everything.
I hope
else.
it never comes out.
yeah. For one, I'm with him because like I'm a firm believer if it's going to take away from this, like leave well enough alone. But also, dude, if they want to fast track the show, we're a third of the way through. They can have this show out by next year easily. Not at the same time gap, but if it's that successful, and they rush it, that means it's going to take something else's place in production and stuff.
Well, I know
that's if everybody's available. Sorry, Andy. That's if everybody's available. Like Pedro Pascal is the busiest man in Hollywood right now.
Yep, scheduling. They spent 3 years doing the first season, and because of COVID, that hampered it quite a bit. So if you take that 3 years, chop it in half, and assume COVID wasn't a thing, and call it a year and a half, that's kind of where my brain's applying a year and a half to filming and post production.
They can knock one of these shows out in 6 months, man. Filming wise, like if they buckered, I think it's all what Double O said. If they're available and they want to rush this to supply the demand, which I mean,
yeah,
historically HBO takes little breaks sometimes, though, right? Like it takes a minute.
Yeah, I'm no film pro
schedule, like he said.
Yeah, I'm no producer or anything like that, but I will say this: they're starting to highlight just in the last day or two that Neil Druckmann and Craig Mazin have been coming out saying that season 2 will definitely, or game 2 will be more than one season.
Yeah, it has to be, right?
It has
well, there you go. They're already supplying the demand right there.
At least,
I know you mentioned it's a lot longer too, though, right? The game itself.
Yeah, it's like twice as long.
Oh yeah.
I guess I wonder if this was like gauging interest kind of thing, and after this we'll see like that if they call everyone back and start signing contracts, they'll be signed into the schedules for it as well at that point, I guess.
I would be shocked if like Bella and Pedro weren't already contracted beyond the first season in secret to some degree, simply because of how Druckmann has the story written so far. But
and Bella Ramsey's an HBO baby anyways. Like HBO has all Disney has their regulars, HBO has their regulars, like they're almost like house actors. So most of those people you see, those voice actors, don't take this the right way, but they're available. I promise.
Well, there's quite a few people in this show that are HBO staples.
Oh yeah, that's always good to see too, though.
Speaking of staples, what we didn't do tonight was give the episode a grade.
I did.
So we did hear from you, Mark. We'll go around the horn and talk grade before we close out for the night, because we easily surpassed our normal hour-ish runtime and are at the 2-hour mark. Yeah, exactly. And I know all of us have to work tomorrow, so we'll wrap it up. And I want to say thank you to all 21 people now. Continue hitting that thumbs up button as we go around the horn here, giving our grades.
So I'm going to give this, this episode was as good as any other for me. I liked it quite a bit. The things that I didn't like were nitpick issues and nothing that I can even think of off the top of my head. A solid A for me for this one. I'll go with the letter for you. Solid A.
Yeah, A from me as well. I thought it did what I needed it to do in order to be satisfied with the show.
And it stuck the landing.
It stuck the landing for me. Yep. That fucking liar, Joel, man.
Yeah.
Mark, did you want to add more to your green grade?
Yeah, it's still green. It's definitely not in the upper echelon of green. It's close to yellow green, even just because it's comparing it to other episodes. But it's green.
Awesome.
Can I ask really quick, Mark? What was your greenest episode that you watched?
Oh, the Frank and Bill episode, man.
Okay.
But I'll also take that episode. I set it on a shelf, and then outside of that, the second Casey episode.
Okay.
Best episode.
Yeah.
Best
Number
episode.
5. Yeah.
Yeah,
The
easily
bloater.
best episode
Yeah.
of the season.
A B+ from Cosmic One, and Solo Wookie with a 9.9. I'm going to bridge that gap and say I'm going with a 9.8/A+. Some imperfections, some things to nitpick, but probably one of the better episodes, and that's the viewers are kind of agreeing with that as well. The scores on this are up there within the top 2 or 3 episodes of the whole season.
Yeah, I mean, I would say like the Frank and Bill one, to your point, was like its own almost amazing
It's
thing.
not even fair to compare it to the other ones. It was a slice outside of it.
Yeah, I liked this one. I think I really like the scene with the clickers, the introduction of the clickers from that episode. And then the episode I really liked as well was Sam and what's his name?
Henry.
Yeah, oh god, that was good.
Yeah, episode 5.
Oh god.
Yeah, that's the same one. That's my favorite episode. Then 8 after that.
Yeah.
The cannibals.
Cannibals
in
great
my
too.
mind,
Shit.
In my mind, it like care less about the cannibals, but watching Ellie. That Ellie development was phenomenal.
Right.
And you weren't able to be here last week, but they seeded all of that. Joel seeded every bit of that development we watched her execute. That's what I mean. Like, so for them to not have that same context in this last one, to that degree at least.
Right.
It just caught me a little off guard. Still liked it. Still green. Still green. Don't shoot me.
Well, I can't thank you guys enough and everybody in the chat for an amazing night of a little bit more debate as this season comes to a close. And I can't wait for more. But if you guys want more, especially of what these guys have to offer, let's go around the horn and say, Double O, man, you up? Where can people find you, and what do you have coming up next?
I will be at on Renovision on Wednesday night at 9:15. We will be doing the Totally Awesome Coolest Show. And that usually runs for a few hours. And then anybody that's local to the Southeast Michigan, Detroit area, I will be in Clawson, Michigan this Sunday for a show. I don't think the wife's going with me, so I'm running a solo, but setting up at a show this weekend. Marty Herchek's Clawson Comic and Toy Show. So I'll be there Sunday, so come say hi.
Awesome, man. Hope that show goes well for you.
Thank you.
Jackson, I'm going to ask you every week.
Yeah, well, hopefully I'll be back here at some point soon, even though this show is over. But otherwise, you can find archive content on the Bored and Annoyed YouTube page, Spotify, anywhere where you want to hear my dumbass opinions on movies and TV. So enjoy.
Well, this relationship certainly is not over, and we'll talk more about that in a second. But Mark, man, where can people find you in Legion of Comics?
Right here on the old YouTubes. Be sure to check it out. If you like comic books, it's the place to come dive into the stories and speculate on the stories and love the characters. And I do have my 2,000 subscriber mega giveaway entry is up. Posted it last Wednesday. You still have time to, thank you, Becker. I've been blowing you up, but there it is. So you still have time to go enter. There's slabs, there's keys. I'm going to do a whole live thing 1 week from this Wednesday. Prizes for the chat, prizes for people who enter via the video if you can't be there live. And there's a little secondary slab giveaway that's included in there if you want to take that entry video and go post it over on Instagram. Just make sure to tag me so I don't miss it and miss your entry in that separate wheel where your odds are the highest for winning that specific prize.
I didn't even know there was an entry for that. I saw everybody share it. I was like, oh yeah, I got to remember to share it. And 2 days later, I finally remembered to share that up. That's pretty awesome. Congratulations again. I can't wait to see everybody get together for that, man.
Congratulations on the 2K, man. Good job.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
But I just want to say again, thank you, everybody. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up before the show ends. The people that are kind of showing up at the tail end, hitting the thumbs up helps out tremendously. As you guys can see, the chat interaction and the thumbs up kept the show. There's been 20 people watching live for 2 hours. That's pretty phenomenal for the Last of Us show. And what I want to say is this is not the last episode that we're going to do. We are actually going to probably take next Monday off to recuperate a little bit, and I'll talk with those guys and see what kind of schedule they have coming up. But Double O, Jackson, and I would like to get together to do probably an episode just about Game 1, an episode just about Game 2, maybe even the Last of Us the Left Behind content somewhere in there. But we also would like to do an episode that we really dive into the theories and where they could go, especially for Season 2, potentially a Game 3, potentially a Season 3. Kind of want to start to flesh all this out and kind of see if I want to know if my mind is similar to what Double O and what Jackson are thinking, and maybe some other people that want to watch that don't mind either spoilers or won't have any spoilers in there, and see what other people in the community are thinking about where this could go. Because the elephant in the room and the question on the tip of everybody's tongue is could this be the next Walking Dead? Not that we're trying to say a zombie show, but could this be the next big show or the next big fandom / universe of this decade, outside of Star Wars, outside of Disney, outside of like the mainstays? Could this be the next groundbreaking fantasy show that we all really care for and enjoy? And not saying it's going to go 11 seasons. It's not going to go 11 seasons, but I really kind of want to sit down and kind of flesh this out some more and see what happens and what comes of it. But without further ado, yes, again, thank you, everybody. It's been a milestone of an episode. It's been a fantastic week. It's only Monday, and I'm already losing my train of thought, but
I'm ready to sleep through the entire week.
I wish I could.
Yeah, we're back in the swing of winter in Michigan, and it's just needs to go away. But the most important part all day, every day, are each and every one of you and everybody that comes to the chat. And variety is the spice of life. And the more people we meet, greet, and talk to, the more I learn and the more I grow. And I hope everybody else feels the same way, or at least gets something from these shows and episodes like I do. I really appreciate it. And you guys rock. You guys are the most important part all day, every day. The guests, the hosts, everybody in the chat, it's greatly appreciated. Everybody here. Was there ever a spinoff? We'll talk about that in a future episode, man. Definitely want to dip into some of that stuff. But you guys know how I'm going to do this, right? I'm going to go peace out. I'm going to go pinkies out. I'm going to catch you on the flip side for the next one. And remember, the most important part all day, every day, are each and every one of you. See ya.
Be excellent to each other. And party on, dudes.